Hi everybody, Tim here with today's episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 3, The House of Quark. Overall, this was kind of a fun episode. It was a really interesting episode where we just had three very intense episodes with the Jem'Hadar and the Search two-parter, and so this episode was a little bit more lighthearted. Unless you're Quark, then this episode was more intense than all three put together. So it starts out kind of interesting. Things are going a little rough for Quark. He talks about how Cisco didn't negotiate with the Dominion, and so things are just kind of hard on the station right now. Which again, like I've said, this is a story arc. This isn't just episodic. So they're already mentioning things that just happened. Where if you didn't watch The Search Part 1 and Part 2, you're going to be like, what's he talking about? Cisco met with the Dominion? So I like how they're already keeping that in the continuity. It starts out pretty interesting where we have a Klingon who is super drunk and he starts to kind of have a confrontation with Quark and he falls on his own knife and dies. Meanwhile, we have a little bit, well, I'll just keep with that. So for the main plot, Quark ends up going to Kronos, is how you say that? I don't know. The Klingon homeworld. And it's an interesting, like the whole setup's really interesting because Quark killed this Klingon in a great battle of rage, he now marries the widow and gains ownership of that house. Whereas meanwhile, there's another Klingon who's trying to take ownership, and so they have to go to Gowron and basically go to court and plead their different sides, which is kind of fun, because to see Gowron, I think this is the first time we've ever seen him in this franchise without Worf. So it's great. I love, once again, continuity. We saw this character come to power, and now we know that he is still part of the High Council. Rom shows up and all sorts of different shenanigans happen, and it turns out like Quark tries to bring financial services to the Klingons and they just get frustrated, and overall Quark wins, and then she divorces him because she gets to keep her house. Great episode, super fun. Only Armin Shimmerman could do this role, and he does it so well. It's great. Meanwhile, there's a subplot to this one that I didn't feel connected with, where Keiko ends up closing her school. I mean, she fought so hard to get the school going from the first part of season 1. It's been 2 years, and because of all these negotiations with the Dominion and stuff, like, there's no Bajoran children in the school anymore. It's basically just Nog and Jake. And so she decides to close the school, and it's just kind of interesting to watch O'Brien and Keiko kind of talk about like what their goals are for life in general. Because, I mean, they had a happy life on the Enterprise, and O'Brien took this promotion and came to DS9 where things are hard and they're not as easy. So Keiko agrees to go to the planet of Bajor to do some work there for 6 months. And they try to say, oh, it's okay because it's only 3 hours away by runabout, which first it was like 2 hours, and then it was 5 hours, and now it's 3 hours. So they need to get the continuity on that down a little bit. But overall, like, they're basically just writing Keiko out of the show with Molly. Like, he even says, oh, just take Molly with you. Supposedly they did that so they could focus on the O'Brien and Brashear friendship. But overall, personally, I felt like it was a disservice to Keiko, because Keiko's one of my favorite characters. I thought she's a great character from Data's day when we first meet her and they're getting married to this episode. And she does come back. We do see her a lot more later on. But overall, like, I don't know. For whatever reason, it just didn't gel with me in the way it should have. So for those who have seen this episode, what did you think about Quark and the House of Quark and being on the Klingon homeworld, which we don't really see Quark leave the station very often. I think we've seen him leave twice now. So what did you think about that? And then what do you think about Keiko leaving for a while? Go ahead, let me know what you thought. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you guys for the YouTube subscriptions, the friend requests, the messages, the recommendations. Thank you guys for everything. You guys are all awesome. I will see you guys next time for Equilibrium.